Welcome to Fantasy Football Live, presented by Ram Trucks. Sal Vetri, Andy Behrens. I'm Jason Fitz. We're going to be here for the next 30 minutes to get you ready for all the Thursday night action you could possibly need, and also to get you a little bit of a sneak peek into what to look for over the course of the weekend. You know that you can get involved in the conversation. All you got to do is use the hashtag AskFFL. Gentlemen, week 2 is already here. We are kicking off week 2. I'll be honest, I got my butt kicked in week 1. Sal, give everybody some beacon of light. Did you do better than I did week 1? Because I feel like in every one of my fantasy leagues, I'm just getting stomped by all of my friends.
Yeah, maybe the one I care about the most. I got a little bit cocky. I had Xavier Worthy on Thursday night. So, I'm puffing on my chest. I'm getting a little chirpy in the chat. And then my opponent's kicker and defense scored 40 points and I lost. So it was a rough crash ending to the week.
Andy Behrens, any hope for everybody here?
Fitz, we're on to Cincinnati. The games keep coming. We got to have a next man up mentality. It was I feel like I had the week that Sal did, where like the teams that I was most invested in and felt the best about, they are currently 0-1, and all the weirdo teams, they're 1-0. Who knows?
I wish a smart person hadn't told me a few weeks ago that the important thing is starting fast, because the numbers show if you start well in the season, you make the playoffs. Because I was just blasting that out to everybody, and then all I did was get blasted by everybody. And it's amazing how once you're part of this show, again, 19 years of this show, it's funny how my friends a couple of years ago didn't talk the same level of trash. Now I host this show. All of a sudden, it means that y'all's expertise is supposed to make me, here's the thing. I like your on to Cincinnati approach. The one good thing that I can say is that I held true to my word. I didn't gamble any money in week 1, thank God, because I would have lost all of it. All right, Thursday Night Football is here. We've got a matchup to preview, and it is a good one. We get to say that early and often this season. We've got the Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. Right now, Miami favored by 2.5. The over-under on this 48.5, so expecting some points in what looks like it will be a close game. And of course, the big story was going to be the actives, inactives on this. We all know all eyes have been on the running back position. Raheem Mostert, we all knew, inactive. De'Von Achane currently is active. So what that means for how much work he'll get, we'll see. But we do know that De'Von Achane is going to be playing. So gentlemen, with that in mind, let's take a look at some players to watch. Andy Behrens, give me somebody that you've got your eye on out of the gates.
Yeah, we got to talk about Miami's backfield. Achane in, Raheem Mostert out, which should mean a whole lot of Jeff Wilson. Rookie Jalen Wright is active as well after a DNP in the opener, but I would view Wilson as the much safer bet in this one. We know he's a circle of trust player for Mike McDaniel. Wilson was active last week ahead of Wright. He carried 5 times, 26 yards. Averages 4.5 yards per carry for his career. He's just a good player, a reliable vet. He is entirely playable tonight if you're already hurting at running back. Remember, you got to slot him at running back and not at flex. We don't burn our flexes on Thursdays. Miami had 2 running backs on the field on over 50% of their snaps last week because De'Von Achane ran a whole bunch of routes from the slot. Sal and Matt discussed that situation really well in the fantasy podcast this week. It opens up a very clear path for multiple Dolphins backs to be fantasy relevant in any given week. We love that. So tonight, Achane, I think a strong play, a ridiculous talent in a unique role for that team. And Wilson, to me, kind of a tepid play, but he's viable. And Wright is really just a half-court desperation heave.
Let me follow up there for a second. You said we don't burn our flex on Thursday night. Why?
Yeah, you want to give yourself maximum flexibility, right? In case you have an injury later in the week. Injuries pop up all the time, like in a Friday practice or a game day morning. So you want to give yourself as many possible options. You want to save those late guys for the flex spot so you have as many options as possible. So you're not just having to replace a running back with a running back. You have the full field to work with.
Look at that. Bringing brilliance early in the show. All right, Sal, keep the brilliance going. Give me somebody you've got your eye on for.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Bills wide receiver, 2nd-round pick, the rookie Keon Coleman. There's a lot of question marks on what this guy's role would look like entering the season. A lot of us had a lot of hope in, or encouraged to see in the preseason that he was seeing good usage, and it continued in week 1 when he played 90% of the snaps, the most in the team, and he led this team in first read target share. That's important because Josh Allen's first read, which is his priority on that play, he looked 31% of the time to the rookie Keon Coleman, nearly 3 times more than anybody else on the team. So what does he come out with? He comes out with 4 catches for 51 yards in a game where the Bills only threw 23 times, the 3rd fewest pass attempts in a Josh Allen game in his career during the regular season. That's going to increase. It was a windy weather game. Keon Coleman looked good. It's a tough matchup on Thursday Night Football against the Dolphins secondary tonight. So as long as that role continues and it's continuing to look good, I'll be encouraged no matter what he does tonight coming out of this week.
So let me pile on to that as we talk about players to watch, because I think one of the most interesting things about week 1 is we wondered who would be favored. And the answer a little bit is kind of everybody. Look, Josh Allen, we know, doesn't have Stephon Diggs, and much has been made about that. And I've said repeatedly on this show that the Bills believe he accounts for 40 touchdowns no matter what happens. What we see in that game? 2 rushing, 2 passing. We saw Josh Allen be Herculean, but we also saw Josh Allen just throw to anybody. And I'm curious what this looks like, Sal, from a fantasy football standpoint, because I hear you on Keon Coleman, but I also look across the board and say this feels like the type of offense where one week one guy might get heavy, one week the other guy might get heavy. Like, I don't know right now. You tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't know right now if I can actually trust any of these target shares that we're going to see Bills receivers get.
Yeah, I think it could be a matchup thing. Like in week 1, we saw Dalton Kincaid, who a lot of people thought the tight end would have a massive role in the offense. And overall, he did. He ran a lot of routes. He played the most snaps on the team, but he was kind of schemed out of the offense. The Arizona Cardinals defense focused in on him, and he was out. So it was then up to the next guys. I think that's probably what it's going to be week by week, outside of maybe the second half of the season when they actually know what they're doing with this personnel. Feel out period for those first 4 to 6 weeks, I think is what you're going to see in Buffalo.
All right, so keeping our eyes on tonight's game, let's get to our next best segment. Bring the props. Time to bring in the noise, bring in the funk, bring in the props as we give you a prop that each of us likes. Now, Sal, by the way, the big leader, he's the only one that got his week 1 prop right. So, we give a little golf clap to Sal as we remind everybody that Sal is not only the prettiest in the room, but he's also the best. What you got, like a champ? Okay, he's got a championship belt. It should be noted. It's a tiny belt.
I'm sorry, is that a week 1 championship belt? Is that what I'm looking at? Wow. Okay.
Sal, did the belts get bigger if you win additional weeks? Like, is the week 2 belt maybe coming to like an adult size?
It's the optics of the camera. It's huge. It's the optics of the camera.
Okay, perfect. Or you're gargantuan. That's the other thing. Like, maybe we're just now finding out that Sal's actually 8'3". It could be. All right, Andy Behrens, let's start with you. Give us a prop that you like other than the prop bets on the size of Sal's belt.
Yeah, well, of course, the right answer here is Jason Sanders over 1.5 field goals, but our producers hate the kicker props. They don't want me talking about that. So I will take Josh Allen over 36.5 rushing yards. He's done this actually in 5 straight games, postseason included. One of those games happened to be against Miami. And in 3 of those 5, Allen actually rushed for over 65 yards. So we know he's a proactive runner. We saw it last week. This has become a little bit more of a ground-based attack in the second half of last season after the coordinator change, and it's worked. So while I'm certainly hoping that we get more than last week's 23 pass attempts to 10 different players, that was wild. I'm certainly hoping that we get more than that. I don't doubt this team's commitment to the run, and I don't doubt Allen's commitment to do it.
I love that by you, by the way. If you go back and look at Thursday night football splits over the last couple of years, the over on quarterback rushing numbers hit on Thursday night, which brings me to the prop that I like because I also like safety on Thursday night, right? Like, this is a short week, so that means guys go to who they're familiar with, and that's why I'm going to look straight at Dalton Kincaid as the prop that I love going into this game. The over of 4.5 receptions, over 44.5 yards. And guys, it's for the same reason that you just talked about with Josh Allen. If it's a short week, and I know Josh Allen's only got a couple of days to prep, and he's got a bunch of receivers he's not really familiar with, and one guy that he actually knows, what's he going to do? He's going to throw to that guy. Everybody simplifies what they do on Thursday night football. The game plans look easier for the offenses to execute. They're trying to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand faster, and it feels more like a glorified practice in a football game. So I like safety, and safety comes from Dalton Kincaid. So 4.5 receptions and 44.5 receiving yards. I'm hammering them both together into one play. I'm getting aggressive on the prop, Sal, already. I'm now all of a sudden one prop isn't good enough for me. I need 2 props together. All right, Sal, what do you got for us? Give us a prop you like.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, what do they say? Great minds think alike. I can copy and paste everything you basically just said for my prop, and it's going to be James Cook for more than 2.5 receptions in this game. Listen, James Cook last week, he had 3 catches in that game. He was second on the team in target share, and that was a game where, like we've mentioned, they only threw 23 times. Cook had 19 carries in that game. That was the 3rd time ever in his career that he's had at least 19 carries. I don't think that you're going to be seeing that moving forward. I think you're going to see more pass attempts starting tonight against Miami, and this is a much more difficult run defense that Cook Cook will face. It's not the Arizona Cardinals. It's a solid Miami defensive line that was pretty good in week 1 at stopping the run. I think what you're going to see tonight is Josh Allen, who doesn't have a lot of chemistry still with these receivers. He's going to go through read 1, read 2, read 3, and then look down not once, twice, but 3 or more times to James Cook, and we're going to hit the over.
That speaks to what we all think of the Dolphins defense and what we all think of the Bills offense. We've all taken overs, but we've taken overs on very cautious bets around the Bills offense. Like, this just feels like an ugly game in the making, guys. That's what it feels like. All right, now we're going to keep breaking down everything that we need from Thursday Night Football, but also we like to look at the entire weekend as a whole and take a look at some tough spots, trying to figure out what to do with maybe a matchup that we don't understand fully or we don't know what to do. And I'm going to bring you guys some expertise. I need your expertise on somebody that's in my leagues. I don't usually draft Raiders players because everybody knows my fandom, and I feel like if you're already going to break my heart on Sunday, I don't need you to also break my will as a fantasy football owner. But I picked up Zamir White because I really felt good about Zamir getting a bunch of carries and having some effectiveness. Against the Chargers, there was none. Andy Behrens, I'm trying to figure out what in the hell I'm supposed to do at this point with Zamir White.
Yeah, I'm a little petrified here. I think the easy answer is you probably don't start him this week, right? It's a very challenging matchup against the Ravens. We don't like that. It was a little unnerving, and I'm kind of on the Zamir White bus too. I really liked him over those final 4 games last year. A lot of yards after contact, a lot of volume. But he was splitting the workload with Alexander Mattison, and it was kind of in Madison's favor, at least in terms of snaps, in terms of receiving volume. Mattison looked as good as he ever has, right? So I think Mattison is a real problem, and this game figures to be more of a Mattison game than a White game. So I don't think he's a guy that you're going to be playing every week.
Yeah, I feel like that's the case, but it is also a reminder how much our thoughts change after one game. Because you're right, Zamir White wasn't explosive enough. He wasn't good enough in the run game. The run game wasn't established enough. I'm just trying not to overreact, both as a fan and as a fantasy footballer. I don't know. All right, Sal, give me a tough spot that you've got your eye on.
Yeah, a tough spot that I got my eye on in multiple leagues, and I've also received the question from just a lot of people this week, is the debate between Jordan Mason and Jerome Ford. They're both right around top 12 running backs this week. This is assuming Christian McCaffrey is not able to go, which some reports are leaning that way, where we stand today on Thursday. So between these two guys, this week is a big question for me in multiple leagues, and I'm curious. The recency bias says Jordan Mason with the Monday Night Football performance, but you look on Sunday, and Jerome Ford also had a great game in a tough matchup. So Andy, please help me. What do I do here?
Yeah, Jerome Ford was sneaky good on a day that nothing really looked great for Cleveland as well. I mean, I always default to what is the offense that I want to really be invested in, and that's obviously San Francisco here. And the matchup is tremendous too, right? We think certainly they're not going to fall behind Minnesota by multiple scores, take the run away. We're always bad at predicting game flow, but I can't really imagine the scenario where Jordan Mason isn't just like an absolute hammer in this game throughout. So that's where I'd go. I think pretty comfortably if McCaffrey doesn't play, and just reading tea leaves, I don't think he will. Mason is a pretty clear top 8, top 10 fantasy back for me.
I would just like to remind you both that I'm a moron, because I was getting blown up by my friends when McCaffrey was out on Monday. And I said to everybody, I was like, just go get his backup. Mason's going to be fine. Go get his backup. You can get him right now. If he's available in your league, you can still plug him into your lineup. I did that to a couple of different friends who both won their matchup this weekend. Did I go out and pick up Jordan Mason? No, I did not. I told everybody else to do it. This is my life right now. Andy Behrens, give us a tough spot you're looking at.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the single most difficult sit-start dilemma that I have, and it actually involves tonight's game. It's Dalton Kincaid versus Isaiah Likely, and this is me experiencing recency bias to the fullest. But this actual decision has cost me sleep this week. I woke up at 5 a.m. a couple days ago just to go check how many snaps Dalton Kincaid had played. I like that this question is resolved tonight, one way or the other. These are two tight ends who I discussed probably the most frequently in the preseason. One is a breakout, the other is a sleeper, and my breakout is sleeping, and my sleeper broke out. So Sal, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I'll make this easy. I'll be real confident in my answer. You want to start Dalton Kincaid tonight. Look, Isaiah Likely, it's crazy to say it. He had over 20 points, and Kincaid doesn't even get to 20 yards in week 1. But I don't think we're only going to get 2 Mark Andrews targets. Mark Andrews, who's still 29, by the way, he's not over the hill. Mark Andrews is still a good tight end. It was one game in the most nationally televised week, or the game of the week on Thursday Night Football. Everybody saw it, and I think there's a little bit of overreactions. He kind of got schemed out of that game. He also entered that week, Mark Andrews, banged up. It was his first week practicing in a month plus. So I think that balance is going to, the target shares, at least between those Ravens tight ends, balance out. I think you want Dalton Kincaid in a bounce-back game tonight. And by the way, the usage was good last week in terms of snaps. Just kind of got schemed out of that game by the Cardinals. That's the guy they were focusing on.
You also left out the part that they're taking on that juggernaut Raiders defense. I'm saying the bias runs deep for me, y'all. All right. We like to help you guys. Obviously, you can chime in. Hashtag AskFFL. Make your pick time. So we'll get some questions from you guys. You can chime in, and we'll get the guys to answer them. We start with Cody from Make Your Pick saying 10-team, 0 PPR, no flex start, 3 wide receiver, Hill's in, and the other 3 are Dell, DK, and London. Hashtag AskFFL. Andy Behrens, what do you think?
Yeah, first of all, I really like Tank Dell. I like everything that we saw from Houston's offense last week, really. And Dell's usage basically was what it was last year when he broke out. So I feel really good about him. And then it becomes a DK versus London question, and I'm gonna go DK there, mostly because I'm shook by what we saw from Kirk Cousins and how he functioned and how he didn't function in that offense. I'm a little bit worried about that passing game. It's a great matchup for London. Like, he should be able to, if this were healthy Kirk Cousins, everybody healthy, we'd feel great about it. But I'm gonna do a little wait and see here, since I've got an option as good as Metcalf.
Yeah, everybody that's got Michael Penix Jr. sitting on their bench somewhere is like, might be coming soon. All right, let's get the next one in here as we continue to get the guys' advice. This one coming from Colin says 12-team, half PPR, 2 running back spots, and 1 flex. Kamara, Cook, Stevenson, Najee, Jameson. Which 2 or 3 are you starting? What do you think, Sal?
I mean, Colin is just flexing on us with this just stable of running backs that he has, but I'm going to go with, assuming Christian McCaffrey is out, the combination of Jordan Mason, Ramondre Stevenson, and Alvin Kamara. Those 3 guys are top 12 backs for me this week if there's no CMC. Maybe top 10. Love what I saw out of Ramondre Stevenson last week. The question is, how much will he keep that up in the offense behind the offensive line? But in week 1, he broke 10 tackles. He had 118 yards after contact, by far the most on the week. And specifically for Alvin Kamara, the matchup is going to get tougher this week. He's a 6-point underdog. He's going to face Dallas, whose defensive line looked fantastic against the Browns in week 1. But Alvin Kamara, maybe he doesn't get the 15 carries he had in week 1. Maybe he gets 9 or 10, but that leads to 3, 4 more targets, a couple of more receptions. And for fantasy, I'd rather take those targets and receptions. Those are the 3 guys that I'll be starting in week 2 if I were you, Mr. Colin.
Yeah, Colin, please, God, write us back and let us know. It's like a 4-team league. Like, what are you doing? How do you have that stable? Okay, that's fine. Let's go next to Jared Brennan, who comes in with a twofer. By the way, I didn't know twofer was spelled that way. It's perfect. Tank Bigsby or Etienne Madison or Jeff Wilson. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, your first one here, Bigsby or Etienne. First of all, Bigsby is a real problem for Etienne. That's pretty clear. He was actually out carrying Etienne before the fumble last week. I would still start Etienne. We saw him he was in action at the goal line. He's still catching passes. He dominated the snap. So that would be Etienne for me. And then in the other one, I think I'm actually leaning Madison. If it's a full PPR, I feel better about that receiving workload. Otherwise, I would go ahead and pull the trigger on Jeff Wilson.
All right, let's get one more in here from Rob. Rob asking Sal, giving us the choice here of Coleman, Ridley, Deontay. Pick 2 in a PPR. What do you think, Sal?
Yeah, the first one for me is going to be Keon Coleman because the quarterback situation alone here is enough for me to go to Keon Coleman, a top 3 quarterback on the planet, and Josh Allen. And the reasons we stated earlier with his role in week 1 looked good. I'm excited to see what it looks like, especially if the Bills pass more, and they should tonight. And the second one is, just 2 brutal offenses, but I'll go Deontay Johnson. He had a 35% target share, according to Jacob Gibbs on Twitter, before he left the game in the third quarter last week. That's pretty good. Now, what is the offense going to look like? 30 Bryce Young pass attempts only went for 160 yards. I have to believe it'll be better in week 2. And if it is, I think Deontay will benefit most.
We want to believe. We'd like to believe. God, Panthers fans would love to believe. All right. Keep your questions coming. Hashtag AskFFL. We'll keep trying to answer them. In the meantime, let's take a look at the injury reports for the weekend coming out of practices this week. Some notable injuries that we are monitoring. David Njoku is out. T. Higgins with the hamstring injury. Christian McCaffrey, of course, everybody's talked about the calf injury. You also have Kenneth Walker III with the oblique injury right there. Hollywood Brown shoulder did not practice Thursday. Andy Reid still says he has a chance to play coming in. Keenan Allen, heel. Rome Odunze with the knee injury. Dalton Schultz also with the ankle injury. Let me ask you this, Andy, with Rome. I mean, how concerned are you with that just pathetic Bears offensive effort that we saw in week 1, where the Titans coach, for anyone that didn't see this, actually said in the press conference, we would have won if we just punted on first down every time. Like, that's how bad the Bears offense was.
I will say, in their defense, and this could be a problem in week 2, because if there's no Keenan Allen, that receiving core suddenly looks pretty sketchy. They had some true near misses in that one. Keenan dropped a touchdown. Caleb overshot him on a touchdown. There was another play that was broken up by the Titans pass rush where Keenan was basically alone in the end zone. So they were close. And the other good thing that you can take away for Caleb is that he was really making good decisions. Like, there weren't plays where he went somewhere with the ball and you were like, what are you thinking? What are you seeing? They were all good decisions. That Titans pass rush really got to him, though. But obviously, if the Bears receiving core isn't healthy, then they have no chance to hang with Houston. Because the Bears defense is fine, but I don't know that they can hold Houston to a low number. So they're perhaps not ready for that.
I appreciate your smart analysis on it. By the way, I had to ask the Bears fan about it. I will also say, in Caleb's credit, I'm not sure you get much more of a difficult matchup in week 1 than taking on a defensive coordinator that's never been a defensive coordinator. So they had no idea what to expect from the Titans. I do think we need to factor that in. Okay, we'll keep you updated on the injury, but now let's turn to our fantasy game changers for this week, powered by Ram Trucks, where we're identifying some of the most impactful players in one of the top fantasy matchups on the schedule. We got Lions versus Bucks, highest total of the week, 51.5 on this one. Who doesn't love offense? The Lions favored by 7.5, even though the Bucks looked really good in week 1. So, Andy Behrens, give us somebody that no matter the matchup, in this matchup, you are confident in.
Yeah, really fun matchup here. For me, the big question here is, what does Jameson Williams do for an encore? In terms of usage last week, he basically outkicked all expectations. 9 targets, 1 rush attempt, 134 total yards. Over his last 4 regular season games, dating back to last season, he's got 25 targets. He's also a guy who can operate in different areas of the field from Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta. So there's a world in which this isn't like a zero-sum situation, and Williams' production doesn't have to come at anyone else's expense. They might just be a little bit better if Jameson Williams is that guy going forward. In a shootout of a game this week, against a defense that was really among the most generous against the pass last season, Williams, to me, a very strong play. If we actually get another 6 to 8 targets from Williams, we need to start thinking of him as not so much a boom-bust guy or a high-variance guy, but as simply a set-it-and-forget-it wide receiver, too.
So I love everything you just said, but I want to stress wide receiver 2. Because when I look at somebody that I think is absolutely going to break out, it's wide receiver 1. Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I know that doesn't sound like this big hot take, but I heard all of the talk shows this week on Monday saying, well, maybe Jameson's actually the new number 1. If the Lions believe that, they never would have given Amon-Ra St. Brown epic money. They just gave him epic money because they understand who their superstar wide receiver is. Now, did he get the ball as much as any of us wanted to have him in fantasy football in week 1? No. Do those things correct themselves in week 2? Yes. Have you ever seen a wide receiver 1 that was okay week in and week out not being fed the ball? No. That's going to happen here. I just think that this is one of those things that normalizes. Amon-Ra has been in, I'm sure, everybody's ear all week saying, get me the dang ball. I think that happens in this game. And all of a sudden, we're reminded that it is wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 there. Sal, who do you have your eye on in this one?
Yeah, I'm looking at the other side of the ball here with the Tampa Bay Bucs offense and Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin was somebody coming into the season that we had a lot of promises from the new offensive coordinator Liam Cohn for the Bucs saying we're going to get him back into spots to win, and that's most notably the slot. We saw it a little bit in the preseason. He only played 7 snaps total, though, so we didn't get a big sample. In week 1, we got that sample, and he played more, 44% of his snaps out of the slot compared to about 30% last year. Caught all 4 of his slot targets for 48 yards and a touchdown, according to PFF. So that's great. And then he kicked it to the outside. He caught 4 balls for over 40 yards, had a fantastic performance in week 1. And now he brings that into this week, coming off of a 28% target share against a Lions secondary that there's a lot of new pieces there. There's a rookie back there, Carlton Davis, they signed off of one of his worst years coming back last year from the Tampa Bay Bucks. In week 1 against the Rams, there were some high moments for that line secondary. There's some down moments, still some questions to move around there. But the one thing was the slot. You could attack the slot against the Lions, at least in week 1. 16 slot receptions they allowed during that game, and that's where Chris Godwin's going to be about 50% of the time this week. Last year against the Lions, he led this Bucs team with a team-high 77 yards. I think he could do it again this week.
I also think if he does it again, we might need to start recalibrating some of the expectations we have for Baker and for this entire Bucs offense, because they looked great. I know it's only 1 week. They looked great in 1 week. So let's see if they can replicate it against one of the teams that are clearly the class of the NFC. All right. With the entire weekend in front of us, let's get some bold predictions in. We're going to make bold fantasy predictions for week 2. And gentlemen, I get to go first. And look, it wasn't that long ago that we were sitting here saying the Saints are going to suck. And then all of a sudden the Saints did not. They went in and they absolutely hammered Carolina, to which I say, congratulations. That was a spectacular effort. But my bold fantasy prediction, bench them all. Other than Taysom Hill, bench everybody else that you have that's a Saint, because I don't believe that this was sustainable. I believe that this is a new offensive coordinator that had a 1 week advantage against a trash football team known as the Carolina Panthers. Now that will normalize itself into this week. You'll see all of those numbers come back to where we actually thought those numbers would be. I am cautious on everybody other than Taysom, only because Taysom is a cheat code in the red zone, as we've talked about so often. So maybe he'll still get his, but everybody else that's a Saint, I don't know, guys. I'm pulling back and I'm saying, hey, I'd like to see it against an actual football team, not a fake NFL team. And I'd like to see it when people have had a week to study the offense. So I'm out on the Saints. I may regret how big and bold that was stated. Andy Behrens, give us a bold prediction for week 2.
Yeah, you can tell you've got a few Derek Carr scars. I can feel that coming through the screen. My bold prediction, I don't know how bold this is because the guy is the author of the greatest receiving season in NFL history, but I think we have a 30-point fantasy week incoming from Cooper Kupp. A lot of talk this week about which Rams receiver is going to gain the most value while Puka Nacua is sidelined, and I think the right answer might simply be that Kupp sees 15 targets a game, 16 targets a game. We're talking a little bit too much for my taste about Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson, Colby Parkinson. Kupp gets a user-friendly Arizona pass defense this week. They allowed the 3rd most passing scores last year. I see no reason why he can't carve them up. I don't know that it's going to be like 2021 Cooper Kupp, but the volume is going to be crazy. He saw 21 targets last week, which was by a mile the highest total in the league.
All right, Sal, give us your bold prediction.
Yeah, cover your ears, Fitz. My bold prediction is that Derrick Henry scores 3 touchdowns against the Las Vegas Raiders this week. He bounces back from just a 10-point outing, doesn't even hit 40 rushing yards against the Chiefs in week 1 to open the season. But he only had 5 second-half touches in that game. They were trailing by multiple scores. He came off the field, played less than 50% of the snaps. Justice Hill played more than him as the Ravens played catch-up. But they're not going to be underdogs much this year. Depending on where you look, which sportsbook, the Ravens are only underdogs in 1 or 2 more games the rest of the year. And they're definitely not underdogs this week, where they're nearly 10-point favorites against those Las Vegas Raiders. And I say 3 touchdowns for Derrick Henry in his career as a 7-point favorite or bigger. And I know different teams, he was younger then, but he averages 120 rushing yards per game. I'm not shocked if he finishes as the #1 overall running back and reclaims that crown on his head as King Henry this week.
You know what? Your championship belt was tiny. That's all I have to say to that. Your championship belt was tiny. All right, let's run some hurry-up offense before we get out of here. You guys know the drill. We put 25 seconds on the clock. We get the guys to give their reactions. I can guarantee you I'm going to try and pinch Sal in. Kevin says, PPR league, Mostert out, Wright and Wilson unavailable. Who gets to start, Madison, Chase Brown, or Dowdle? What do you think, Andy?
Oh, this guy wrote an essay for Hurry Up. I'm going to go Madison here. It's a slight lean. He just played so darn much last week. And again, I think the game script in this one is going to favor him over Zamir White.
Okay, look at that. With time to spare, he got that done. All right, that means Sal is coming up next. Sal, Lost Corwin says, #AskFFL. Wide receiver Kirk burnt me last week. Full PPR with Allen throwing. Kirk, McConkey, or Shakir, ? What do you think, Sal?
Yeah, you're already burnt. It can't get much worse. Go right back to Christian Kirk here. I think Christian Kirk's usage is going to increase this week. Jacksonville didn't throw as much last week. Didn't throw all that much. Didn't even hit 30 pass attempts. I think that changes this week.
Oh, we get right before the whistle like a professional. Next up, Kevin Bradley with the very professional headshot for Kevin says, Bass, Dicker, or Prater this weekend. #AskFFL. What do you think?
Oh, I love it. Send in your kicker questions, please. I absolutely love this. I'm gonna go Dicker here. It's a game in which they're huge favorites. They should be able to basically pick their point total against the Panthers. Love this one. Dicker, I think 7 field goals last year, over 50 yards. So need I filibuster on a kicker question? How did I take it all the way up to the whistle there? That's crazy.
No, you did well. You did well. I think we've got more for you. Christopher Side says, start this week, Dell or Jaden Reed as wide receiver 3. Have Debo and Garrett Wilson as first 2, bragger. Sal, what do you got?
Yeah, give me Tank Dell here. One, just the quarterback situation for Green Bay scares me. I'm not even sure if they throw 20 times this week. And Tank Dell, I think he's due for an eruption. Just 40 yards last week, but the underlying usage is there. And we got the role we wanted. 70% of the snaps on the outside. That's where he was last year when he was a top 20 receiver in points per game.
Oh, did it before the whistle again. Professionalism abound. Will Graham says, trade Burrow, Moss, Hill, Herbert for Josh Allen, Henry, Thomas, Spears. I'm worried about Burrow's wrist. Thanks. Andy, what do you think?
We have an 8-player trade and hurry up? That's crazy. First of all, I'm not worried about Burrow's wrist. I know people were sharing the video of him flexing the wrist and he picked up a bottle in a weird way. The throws looked fine. He had a Mike Gesicki problem and like a Tanner Hudson problem. He did not have a wrist problem. I don't think I'm doing this deal. I want to keep Tyreek Hill.
By the way, the Bengals start slow every year. Y'all calm down. Like, what are we doing? Like, the Bengals always do this. Nate Merck says, do I start KC or do I pick up the Jags, Denver, or Seattle? And do I drop Odunze? All right, Sal, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep Kansas City this week against the Cincinnati Bengals. They'll get that home game, and it's just a situation where I want to see Cincinnati do it first. We're not sure if we're going to get T. Higgins still not practicing. In terms of dropping Odunze, if it's a shallow bench league, like you only got 4 bench spots, maybe. Otherwise, no. Keep him. He could be back as soon as 2 or 3 weeks from now.
All right, and yeah, by the way, everybody calm down on Odunze too. Andy Reardon, half PPR, start Jaden Reed or Michael Pittman Jr., all the advice says start Pittman, but he let me down last week, and that meant Jaden Reed got 26 points from my bench. Andy?
Look, it's not personal. He didn't do anything to you personally. Yeah, you're a little bit let down. He still has a much better situation. He's connected to Anthony Richardson. We're probably not getting Jordan Love this week. I'm terrified of those Packers receivers.
Look, I love that there's just that level of panic all the way across the board. We're getting overtime here. Philip Warland says, George Pickens, Zay Flowers, or Jameson Williams, non-PPR. What do you think, Sal?
Definitely not George Pickens. He's going to be visiting that Patrick Surtain Island that shut down DK Metcalf last week. No interest there. I'll go Zay Flowers. He had 8 targets last week. We didn't really see a massive evolution of his role compared to what it was last year, but still the clear number 1 wide receiver on that team for Lamar Jackson. I like the target share. I want to see it again in week 2.
Why do you hate the Raiders? That's a real question, Sal. Like, what did I do that hurt you? G Frost says J.K. Dobbins or Jameson Williams. Andy Behrens, what do you think?
I like both these options. I don't want to pick against either one, but if I had to go one or the other here, it's going to be J.K. Dobbins for me. And I don't think he's like the clear RB1 for the Chargers. I don't think that's happened. I think it's still going to be a committee. But man, they get a matchup with the Panthers. The Panthers just gave up touchdowns to Jamal Williams, to Alvin Kamara. They just got steamrolled last week. That's probably going to happen again.
All right, love it. Look at that coming in against it. I think we have a YouTube question coming in next. No, Billy Goat comes in. Said, well, no, we do have a YouTube question coming in. Anthony Miller asks, Jeff Wilson, Singletary, or Gus Edwards for flex? Sal, what do you think?
I'll take Devin Singletary there. Devin Singletary, 70% of the snaps last week. One of the few running backs to hit that mark. It's not a great offensive line, not a great offense, but you're probably getting 15-plus touches out of Devin Singletary.
Look, and we appreciate you guys chiming in on YouTube. That means a lot. We appreciate all of you guys that have taken the time to watch and comment on YouTube. I think that's it for the Hurry Up Offense. I think we've gone through. No, we've got more. Billy Goat. I think Zay Flowers or DJ Moore. Billy Goat, what do you got? All right, Andy Behrens, what do you think?
Yeah, I like Zay Flowers. I'm going DJ Moore here. They're different classes of player. DJ Moore was the one thing about the Bears offense that worked last week, and he might just get peppered with targets in this one, especially if Keenan Allen and Odunze can't go.
We'll get one more in our bonus free time here coming from Roto Sean saying, flex frustration. Josh Palmer versus A.D. Mitchell versus Wan'Dale Targets Robinson. So what do you think, Sal?
Yeah, this is definitely one of those deeper leagues or just a lot of flex spots. I'm actually going to go A.D. Mitchell here. A.D. Mitchell had a nice target share. They only threw 19 times in that game. 2 near misses on potential touchdowns from Anthony Richardson. He's getting the downfield usage. Go with the rookie A.D. Mitchell.
All right, don't forget, guys, you get twice as much FFL this year. We are back Sunday morning. We're back at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern for a full hour getting you ready for Sunday kickoff. Be sure you're hanging out with us right here. We obviously want to wish all of you luck, especially through tonight. We appreciate you taking the time. He's Sal Vetri. He's Andy Behrens. For everybody behind the scenes that makes this show happen, I'm Jason Fitz. We appreciate you hanging out. Thanks for watching Fantasy Football Live, presented by Ram Trucks.